Hey ladies and gents, it's SpoonyPizzas here and welcome to my complete defending tutorial part 1. As my game evolves, then there will be further parts to come if I find anything out that really helps me improve the way I already defend. I've received quite a few requests after my first true eFootball tutorial dropped, and they were mostly around defending and skills, so here we are. Defending seems to be the hot topic right now in the eFootball community. I'm going to share with you the best tools for defending, which include and are not limited to the different techniques on how to win the ball back fairly and cleanly, the different types of button presses you should be using and shouldn't be using, my 4 methods of defending, and how my defending methods change depending on the section of the pitch. So I have a mix of online and offline clips, and I defend exactly the same way against the AI and against human players, exactly the same methods. So I have 4 methods of defending in 3 different sections of the pitch. The 3 sections of the pitch are as follows: my penalty box, outside of my penalty box up to the halfway line, and then in my opponent's half. Out of these 4 methods that I use to defend, 2 of those methods are for defending in my opponent's half of the pitch, and that's where I'm going to start. So one of the 2 methods that I use when I'm in my opponent's half is when I generally lose the ball, especially deep in my opponent's penalty box or in their half, is to use R1 or right bumper to apply a secondary press, and I will press aggressively with the player I have selected to try and win the ball back as quickly as possible before my opponent can get his team shape back. I hardly use X or A if you're on Xbox, because all of my defending is very manual, because holding X or A to press is not effective like it was in PES 21. Matchup, which is L2 or left trigger by default, is by far your most important defensive tool in eFootball 2022. Don't hold it down permanently though, because it can slow your player down in some instances as he will try to start to jockey, but whenever you feel like your opponent is about to pass the ball, or once you've lined up a passing lane to intercept, this is the precise time you want to hold it down. Intercept radius of your player is doubled and the chance to actually intercept and stop the ball is increased. Otherwise, it can bubble through your legs. L2 or left trigger is also your best way of winning the ball cleanly if you can get close to your opponent. It feels like a bit of an exploit, and I'm sure it's not supposed to be used in this way, but what it does, it activates shielding when you have the ball, and this is an excellent way to knock your opponent off the ball without giving away a foul. I find shoulder charges are a little bit more aggressive, and we will cover those in a bit, and they cause a greater stumble to your opponents, but it does increase the chance of a foul being called by the referee. So just watch how I use L2 or left trigger in these examples to knock my opponent off the ball cleanly to start my attacks. Now you're going to see it all come together. I lose the ball in my opponent's penalty box and I apply that high suffocating aggressive press with R1. I use L2 to muscle my opponent off the ball whilst applying pressure manually with sprint and left stick. I win the ball back, and with some quick play going forward, I'm able to score from this gegenpress style, even with a 4-2-3-1 formation. Against the CPU, it's no different. That high press either forces them to kick it long, or if I end up losing the ball and they pass it backwards, once again I'm applying that aggressive press. I get lucky with the deflection, but I created that luck by being the aggressor, and with a scoop through ball, which is one of the most potent weapons against the CPU, I'm able to score a beautiful volley. This is an excellent bit of footage which brings the high press all together against the CPU. I think the key things to notice here is that the pressing is intelligent, and what I mean by that is that I'm trying to keep good distance and separation between my players whilst doing my best to intercept the passing lanes at the same time. It's important to use the right analog stick if the player you want to choose is not selected, but it also gives you greater control over your player selection. I didn't actually need it in this example, as the secondary player indicator means I could have just pressed L1 or left bumper. As you can see, I don't stop pressing even after I concede the foul or they play the ball back to the goalie. I keep maintaining that pressure until I win the ball, and a delightful through ball and a delicious use of the sharp touch from Pedri creates the opening to slot in Inzaghi, who is absolutely lethal. There have been plenty of instances where I've been able to make my opponents stumble by pushing the left analog stick towards their player along with L2 or left trigger, as you'll see here as Pepe knocks Denis Suarez flying. Finally, when defending aerial balls, don't forget to use Super Cancel, but there will be a Super Cancel tutorial coming soon. As you see here, I use it to push into the back of their striker and allow the ball to bounce harmlessly to my defence. The second method I use when I'm in my opponent's half, especially if they have a formation or playstyle that suits a slower build-up, is that I'm happy to drop back. Just cut out passing lanes passively, try not to concede too much ground, but also understand it's good to remain compact and defend your penalty box well. This player was actually doing really well and composed during my high press, and he worked it around really nicely, which is why I resorted to a far more passive approach and tried to hit him on the counter. It eventually worked as I won the ball on the edge of my penalty box and was able to score following that quick counter attack thanks to the pace and strength of Traore. Now let's take a look at section 2 and how I defend my half of the pitch outside of my penalty box. It's a far more passive approach. Rarely will I ever touch R1 or right bumper unless I feel like I'm guaranteed to win the ball, as this has the potential to destroy my team's shape, and you want to avoid their players getting in between the defence and midfield, as this presents a real danger. When the ball is in the wide area of your penalty box, try not to overcommit on your sprint, because most players will still be moulded by the best ways of attacking in PES 21, which usually results in them cutting inside. I'm able to see this coming and use matchup to intercept the pass. Matchup is still the best method for defending. Another reminder not to hold it down, as you'll see it slows my player down here as he shuffles, but that's fine in this instance because I'm fine tuning his position to intercept the passing lane. And in this next clip, he has no right to intercept this ball with matchup. It really does give you a wide interception radius. A poor bit of play on the halfway line leaves me really exposed, but matchup can also be used to block shots as well as passes. Orejo makes an excellent block here, and whilst I try my best to block the shot inside the penalty box, the player crossover throws me and I end up conceding. In this next example, you'll see me use an aggressive press that we spoke about in section 1. As soon as they break away, I'm just looking to contain and hold them up on the counter. I'll then drag midfield players back behind the ball to get goal side and try to win the ball if I can. It's so important for your midfield to stay close to your defenders when defending, because it adds that layer of protection. Don't select or drag defenders out, because you'll lose your team's shape, and they generally do a good job defending against through balls on their own. As you're going to see in these next few clips, when I am defending in my own half, it's very passive aggressive, and what I mean by that is that I'll keep my team's shape and only press when I'm cutting out all forward passing lanes, or they get close enough to my player to allow me to challenge them. Again, I'm just using the matchup button to win the ball, as that is by far the cleanest method. Now for the hardest area to defend, which is your own penalty box. And this is why perfecting sections 1 and 2 first is so important, because once a skillful player reaches your penalty box, it can be so hard to stop them from scoring. But I'm going to teach you some techniques that I use in the penalty box to help alleviate that difficulty, even when in desperate situations. I want to slow this clip right down, because when your opponent cuts inside, you can see how slow Roberto Carlos turns. So I quickly select another defender, and I'm using L2 to fine tune his positioning to try and block the shot. I'm trying to prevent him shooting to the far post, because that's probably the best chance he has of scoring, but thankfully he powers up a stunning shot, which gives my player from behind time to come in and win the ball without any input from myself. The most important thing about defending your penalty box is understanding all of the threats and seeing the whole picture, and often ask yourself, what would you do? Here I see 3 things that he could do. A piece of skill or fake shot to go around the outside of Reece James, but he hadn't done any skills all game, so I ruled that out. So he's either going to pass or try to curl one into the far corner, both of which mean I can position James to the right using the matchup, again to intercept the pass or block the shot. Here is my opponent attacking from the flank. I want to prevent the cut back to the edge of the penalty box, hence the slide tackle, because I still have another defender ready to cover. Then I'm using L2 once again, because I'm still worried about that cut back, so I'm waiting to see if he's going to shoot. As soon as he starts powering up his shot, I move across to block it. I would strongly advise against using R1 in the penalty box. 2 reasons. 1, it's inaccurate and could lead to giving away a penalty. Secondly, because it's inaccurate, chances are your player won't even run in the right direction. I use it here to call for a player back for support, but this is probably the only time I would consider using it if your players are behind the player with the ball. Now, whilst we haven't used the shoulder charge all that much, it is a really useful tool inside the penalty box, especially when things are getting desperate. You're able to create separation between the player on the ball by causing them to stumble, which can either allow another defender to come in and deal with it, or the goalkeeper to scoop it up. In this complete and utter mess, the ball somehow bobbles through to his man. I quickly select the nearby defender and use shoulder charge, which allows my goalie to collect the ball safely instead of facing a shot. The shoulder charge is best used when side by side with your opponent to avoid giving away a free kick or penalty, as it can be a little bit risky. I hear a lot of complaints as there are too many buttons to learn or it's too complicated, but as you can see with my defensive method, I don't use the pressure button at all, as it's useless. The matchup button, L2 or left trigger, is by far the most useful all over the pitch. Team pressure should only be used in your opponent's half or penalty box. The shoulder charge should only be really used in and around your own penalty box to create separation between the player and the goalkeeper. Just remember the 4 method for the 3 different sections of the pitch, and I'm sure your defending will improve massively. I'm still learning the game myself, and if I find a way to improve on these methods, then I'll create a part 2, so make sure to subscribe if you haven't already done so. Anyway, that's all from me, ladies and gents. Thank you for watching. Hopefully you guys found this video useful. If you did, don't forget to smash that like button. And until next time, guys, take care. I'll see you soon. Bye bye.